Congratulations, my friend. You've just learned how to set up a JSON server to use as your fake database in the project. That's good. So now we are going to see how we can make a fetch request inside our use effect. Let me add back this empty dependency array. Okay. What was this? No, I'm not calling that. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, let's see how we can make this, but now we are not going to need this. We'll not need this. We'll start with an empty value. So this is going to be null because we want to load our blocks from our fake API, our JSON server. So that's what we are loading our blocks from. So initially, this is going to be null. Now, let's see. And for us to do that, let's let me remove some things that are not very important here. Okay, for now, I'm going to comment this line out so that we'll not get any error. So how do we do that? We will say fetch. We are going to fetch and then we'll pass in our API this value here, this thing. We'll copy this and then we'll paste it inside here. Okay. So this is our endpoint. Now, when we fetch, it is going to return us a promise. So we can do .then. Okay. Then we'll get a response object. What can we do with this response object? We are going to return res.json. So we'll convert it into a JSON file. Okay. Now, if this, what this is doing is, if this is successful, it's going to return us a promise. When we get a promise, we can do .then and we'll get a response. We return a JSON of it back. So when we return a JSON, we can still do .then, and then what do we do with that? So we can get now the data from here. It's going to return us a data. Remember that this response object res.json will give us an object, will give us the data. So with the data, what can we do with the data? We can just console log the data for now. So we can console log the data for now, and then okay, right. So we see we have our data here. This is our 2 blocks that we have gotten from our fake API. So that is working correctly, guys. As expected, we are making our fetch request from this endpoint correctly, and we are getting a promise. We are returning our JSON from the promise, and we are doing .then again. We get the data. So whatever this thing returns is our data. We get the data and then we console log our data. Remember that this is our empty dependency array. We'll make this use effect to run just once and get our data. So now we've gotten our data. How do we store our data in our local state? By using our set block. So we can conveniently use our set block inside here because we have forced our dependency array to run only once. we've made it to run only once, so we can set our block automatically inside here. And then since this is setting our blocks to our local state, so we can remove this thing here and see this. We'll remove this also because we are not deleting our data locally. So now let's see how this work is supposed to. It will give us an error because initially, oops, it works. Let me refresh. Yep, this is what I was expecting. It's giving us an error because it cannot read property of null reading map. So let me show you what is happening here. Block list. Where is our block list? Inside this block list, we are trying to read blocks.map, but when this application runs and this JSX is mounted to the DOM, causing this block list to run, there is no blocks initially. It is only because it's a synchronous call. This is a synchronous call, so it takes some time for us to get this value back. For us to get this value and then set our state. So initially the state is null. So you cannot read a property of null, of map. You cannot map anything null on an object. So now, what can we do to fix this? We are going to do something that we call conditional ranging in React. That is purely JavaScript. So for us to use JavaScript, we'll use our curly braces. And then we are going to tell JavaScript that if this block is null, it should not render this part of our code. So we'll say blocks, and to make our conditional ranging. So what this is doing is it will check this. If this is true, then this is going to run. Remember that it is not doing anything with this. Even this is true or false, it does not do anything with this. So if this is false, if this is null, as initially when we run our page, this is null, this other portion of the code is not going to run. And then it will prevent this error that we are getting here, that blocks.map. So let's see how that will function. So if we refresh, it works normally. Let's take off this delete post here because we've deleted the method already that is running the post. So we'll not need any button here because we are going to be making an API call to delete it from our JSON server. So we don't need that there. Okay. So yeah, everything is working well normally. So a recap, what have we done? We have used our fake APIs, which is set up from the JSON server. We have set up the JSON server, and then we are making our fetch requests with this API that is given to us by the JSON server. So we are using these fake APIs to get values inside here, to get all these posts inside here, and then we return the post here as the response as a JSON data. When we return it, we get the promise still here. This is the data, and we set it. We set our block. This is our local state here with that value. But before that happens, because it's going to take it some time, before that happens, remember that useEffect only runs after the JSX has been painted on the DOM already. So while this has been painted on the DOM, this value here is still null. Because this is null, this is not going to run. It's just going to be on a kind of standstill. So we will see how to handle that in our next video.